At my dad's retirement party, my stepbrother revealed shocking that shattered our family's business legacy. So this all went down last month at my dad's retirement party. He'd been running our family business, a mid-sized construction company, for over 35 years. The party was supposed to be this huge celebration of his life's work, with relatives, business partners, old friends, and employees all crammed into this banquet hall at a Marriott. I swear, the place looked like a wedding reception, with round tables, a cheesy DJ, and way too much food. For context, I 28am and the biological son, and my stepbrother Peter 30am came into the picture when we were kids after my mom remarried. Growing up, Peter and I had this weird rivalry. He was always trying to prove himself, especially around Dad. And while Dad was polite, he never really hid the fact that I was the one he saw as the future of the business. The whole family knew Dad was planning to hand over control once he retired. The assumption? That it would be me stepping up. I wouldn't lie, I kind of expected it too. Peter always seemed like the odd man out, working in accounting but never fully trusted with big projects. At least, that's what I thought. Anyway, we're at the party. Dad is giving this long, emotional speech about legacy, hard work, and family. Everyone's clapping, glasses clinking, the whole deal. Then, Dad says he wants to make an announcement about the future of the company. I literally felt my chest puff out because I was ready to stand up and shake his hand, like in a movie. But before Dad could finish, Peter stands up. Dead serious face. He clears his throat and says, "Actually, before Dad talks about the future, I think it's time everyone hears the truth about the past." The whole room went silent. My Aunt Linda actually whispered, "Oh God," under her breath. Peter pulls out a folder, like an actual thick folder, and starts flipping through papers. "For years, I've been keeping track of financial records that don't add up," he says. "And I finally realized why." He holds up a document and looks straight at Dad. "You've been lying to everyone, to me, to him." He points at me and to Mom. I froze. My mom turned pale. Dad tried to laugh it off like, "Peter, sit down, this isn't the time." But Peter wouldn't. He started reading numbers aloud. Discrepancies in payroll, missing contractor payments, money shifted into side accounts. Then Peter drops the real bomb. "You've been funneling company money to cover up your second family. You think we didn't know about you? About the house in Dayton?" Gasps all around. I swear, you could hear a folk hit the floor. My mom covered her mouth like she was going to be sick. Dad's face turned crimson. That was the moment the whole celebration flipped upside down. Theirs. That's the only way I can describe what happened after Peter dropped the second family in Dayton bomb. People weren't even pretending to clap politely anymore. The DJ literally turned off the background music mid-song. My mom stood up so fast her chair screeched across the floor. "What the hell are you talking about?" She snapped at Dad, her voice trembling. Dad tried to keep his cool, but you could see the sweat dripping down his temples. "This is not the place for this nonsense," he said, gripping the podium like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Peter wasn't backing down. "It is the place. You built this whole night on lies. Everyone deserves to know what you've been doing to the family business." At this point, Aunt Linda was whispering frantically to Uncle Mark, who kept glancing at the doors like he was about to bolt. Meanwhile, Dad's business partner, Jeff, looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. He kept muttering, "Oh, God. No." I finally spoke up. "Peter, what the hell are you doing?" I was shaking, partly from anger, partly from panic. He shot me a look, eyes blazing. "I'm doing what you should have done. Stop worshipping him and open your eyes." Then he slapped another paper onto the podium in front of Dad. Payroll ledgers. Half the missing money went into an account under a fake business name. Guess who the beneficiary is? His girlfriend. Mom staggered back like she'd been punched. "You son of a..." She stopped herself, but tears were already streaming down her face. Dad slammed his hand on the podium. "That's enough, Peter, sit down before you embarrass yourself any further." But the thing was, nobody thought Peter was embarrassing himself. All eyes were on Dad. Whispering rippled through the room, like wildfire. I heard someone mutter, "So that's where the budget cuts came from." Another person whispered, "I knew something was off with those contracts." Then Peter leaned in, almost whispering, but loud enough for everyone to hear, "You never planned on giving me a chance in this business, and now I know why. You were too busy stealing from it to even notice." I swear, time froze. My dad's face went from red to pale in seconds. His mouth opened and closed like he was searching for words, but nothing came out. Then my mom just lost it. She grabbed her glass of wine and threw it hard. Red wine splashed across Dad's white dress shirt, and the whole room gasped. 30 years, she screamed. 30 years you've been lying to me, to all of us? Some guests started leaving. You could hear chairs scraping against the floor, heels clicking toward the exit. The retirement party had officially turned into a family courtroom. And me? I just stood there, completely numb. My whole life I'd been waiting for this moment, the handover of the business, the recognition from Dad. And suddenly, it felt like the ground had opened up under all of us. Peter looked right at me and said quietly, "Now do you understand?" The room was pure chaos. Half the guests were whispering and filming on their phones, the other half just standing there, wide-eyed, like they wandered into a soap opera. Dad tried to regain control. He raised his voice, shaky but firm. "Enough of this. Peter doesn't know what he's talking about. These are baseless accusations meant to humiliate me on my night." But Peter didn't even flinch. He raised the folder high like some kind of trophy. "Baseless? You signed these checks yourself. I have bank statements, wire transfers. Do you really want me to read them all out loud, Dad?" The word of Dad sounded like venom on his tongue. That's when my cousin Sam, 32M, who's worked in the company for a decade, stepped forward. "Wait, are you saying the layoffs last year weren't because of the recession? That was fake?" Peter nodded slowly, his voice combo cutting. Dad needed cash flow, so he cut jobs, while he was paying for a secret house and another family 2 hours away. The silence after that was suffocating. Then Jeff, Dad's business partner, exploded. "Do you realize what this means for the company, for the investors, for me?" His voice cracked. "You've dragged all of us into your mess, Dave." My father's jaw clenched. "Jeff, calm down. We can handle this privately." "No," Jeff snapped. "Privately is what got us here." Meanwhile, Mom just sat back down, shaking, muttering, I knew it, over and over. She wouldn't even look at Dad. And me? My hands were shaking so badly I had to put my glass down before I dropped it. Everything I'd believed about Dad, the man I'd idolized, the man I was supposed to succeed, was unraveling in front of 100 people. I finally shouted, louder than I meant to, "Is it true?" Everyone turned to look at me. "Dad," I said again, "is it true? About the money, about them?" For the first time in my life, my father couldn't look me in the eye. His gaze slid to the floor. That was all the confirmation I needed. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything inside me. Peter stepped closer to me, his voice softer now. You see why I couldn't say quiet, why I had to do this? But I was too stunned to answer. Aunt Linda suddenly clapped her hands together, trying to break the tension. "This is not the place for this." "Shut up, Linda," Mom snapped, her voice shaking with rage. "You knew, didn't you? You always cover for him." Linda froze. Her face went pale, which, honestly, said more than words ever could. Now the whispers turned into full-on shouting matches. Some relatives were defending Dad, saying Peter should have waited, should have kept it private. Others were siding with Peter, saying Dad deserved to be exposed. The party was officially gone. It wasn't a celebration anymore. It was a battleground. And right in the middle of it, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about my father's lives. It was about who was going to take control of the family and the business after the dust settled. Dad finally snapped. His voice boomed across the banquet hall, rattling the glassware. "Enough, you think you can stand here and lecture me? You don't know the first thing about sacrifice. Peter, you're just bitter because you were never going to run this company." Peter didn't even blink. He set the folder down on the table nearest him and crossed his arms. "You're right, you were never going to let me run it, but not because I wasn't good enough, because you were too busy covering up your own tracks." Dad jabbed a finger at him. "You ungrateful little..." "Ungrateful." Peter barked to laugh, but there was no humour in it. "I worked my ass-risker scuffing that company for 10 years, pulling 12-hour days in accounting, patching holes I didn't even make. Do you know how many times I stayed late to fix the books so no one outside would notice what you were doing? I kept your secrets longer than I should have." The entire room froze on that line. People looked at each other, murmurs rising. "Fix the books?" "Chef, Dad's partner," repeated, his face going pale. "You mean you knew about this and didn't say anything?" Peter clenched his jaw. "I didn't know everything, Jeff. Not at first. I thought I was fixing mistakes, but by last year, I realised they weren't mistakes at all." He turned back to Dad. "And I also realised why you kept me on a short leash, why you never trusted me with bigger responsibilities." Dad's fists were trembling at his sides. "Because you were never cut out to lead, Peter. You're weak. You don't have the vision, the driver. And you know it." Peter cut him off, his voice cracking with anger. "The real reason is because I'm not your son." And just like that, the entire hall went dead silent. I blinked. "What?" Peter turned to me, his face softer now, almost apologetic. "I wasn't going to say this, but he's not my real dad. He never was. My mom knew it, but she kept quiet to protect me." He took a shaky breath. "He never wanted me. That's why he kept me in the shadows, made me the cleanup guy while you got the spotlight." My stomach flipped. Mom gasped out loud, clutching her chest. "Peter, oh God." Dad's face was stone. He didn't deny it. Not once. That silence was louder than anything he could have said. And that's when the whole picture clicked for me. Peter hadn't just been exposing financial lies tonight. He'd been carrying around the truth about his whole identity. The bitterness, the anger, the obsession with proving himself, it all made sense. But Dad just muttered, "This is not the time to drag personal matters into business." "Personal matters?" Peter's voice cracked. "You stole my childhood, my future, and you call it a personal matter." That was it. The party was officially nuclear. My mom was sobbing, my relatives were openly arguing, and I was standing there staring at the man I thought I knew, wondering if I even wanted to inherit the business anymore. Because right then, I wasn't sure I wanted anything from him. After Peter dropped the bomb about his parentage, the room completely lost it. Chairs were scraping across the floor, some guests were whispering furiously, and others just stood frozen like statues. I swear you could hear the tension buzzing in the air. Mom finally spoke, her voice hoarse from crying. "Peter, you had every right to know. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you sooner." She wrapped her arms around him, shaking, and he just held her, silent but trembling. It was one of those rare moments where even the chaos paused for a second. But Dad didn't pause. He slammed his hands on the podium. "Enough, you all think you can destroy a lifetime of work with a few dramatic words. I built this company from scratch." Peter shot him a look that froze the blood in my veins. "You built it on lies, Dad. Lies, stolen money, favoritism, and secrets. You made me feel invisible for decades while giving him the spotlight." He nodded at me. "And don't pretend you didn't manipulate him too. He's been groomed to follow your every command." I couldn't even respond. Part of me wanted to defend Dad. Part of me wanted to run out of the room, and another part, maybe the darkest part, was terrified that Peter was right. Then Sam, my cousin, stepped forward, shaking his head. "This is insane. I've been with the company 10 years. I knew something felt off, but I never imagined." His voice trailed off. He glanced at Dad. "How many of us were unknowingly covering up your mess?" Jeff, the business partner, finally spoke to you, his hand shaking. "If what Peter's saying is true, legally we might be screwed. Investors, employees, taxes, everything's compromised. You've put us all at risk, Dave." Dad's shoulders sagged for a second, like the weight of decades finally hit him. I didn't think it would ever come to this," he muttered. His authority was crumbling before our eyes. The rest of the relatives took sides immediately. Aunt Linda tried to defend Dad, but most of us were shaken. Even distant cousins, who barely knew the family dynamics, were whispering, "He's lost all credibility." I remember staring at Peter. He looked older than his 30 years, like someone who had carried a world of secrets on his shoulders. And I felt this weird surge of pride mixed with grief. Pride that he had finally spoken, grief that the family we knew was breaking apart. Mom turned to Dad and said quietly but firmly, "You've lied to everyone you were supposed to love the most, and now, you have to face the consequences." Peter looked at me and nodded once. That was the moment I knew he wasn't just trying to hurt Dad, he wanted the family to see the truth, no matter how painful. By the end of the night, the retirement party had transformed into reckoning. Guests left quietly, some shaking their heads, others whispering about what had just happened. Mom stayed close to Peter, holding him like a shield. while Dad just sat at the head table, head in hands, defeated. And me? I realised that nothing about the family business, or even our family, would ever be the same again. The lies had finally surfaced, and there was no putting them back. The next few days felt like a blur. Word of the retirement party followed spread fast, text messages, social media posts, even the local business newsletter had a hint of the drama. Peter and I barely spoke, but there was this unspoken understanding that he had taken the first step toward reshaping everything. Mom spent most of her time consoling him, still pale and exhausted from the emotional storm. She kept saying he had to know I couldn't lie anymore. I understood her, but part of me felt guilty. Guilty for having been so blind, so easily swayed by Dad's charm. Dad, on the other hand, became a shadow of himself. He tried to maintain control over the company through emails and phone calls, but nobody respected him the way they used to. Employees whispered about Peter and me in the hallways. Investors called Jeff asking what was happening, and Jeff kept saying, "We're restructuring leadership." Basically, Dad's reign was over. Peter called me into his office one afternoon. The office smelled faintly of old paper and coffee, and the sunlight cut across the room in shop blinds. "Look," he said, his voice come for the first time in years, "I don't want to fight with you. I want to fix what you broke." I leaned against the desk, still feeling the tension. "And you think you're ready to take over?" Peter shrugged. "I have to be. He never trusted me, but now everyone knows the truth. I can either step up or watch this company collapse under the weight of his lies." I nodded slowly. "You're right, but what about Dad, Mom?" "Dad?" Peter said bitterly. "He has to face the consequences. Mom, she'll heal. We just need to be smart about the company, not about feelings." Over the next week, we began auditing every aspect of the business, uncovering more hidden accounts, mismanaged contracts, and evidence of misappropriated funds. It was exhausting, humiliating, and honestly scary. But with every document we reviewed, I felt a strange sense of clarity. The truth, finally out, made the chaos manageable. Mom started stepping into a more active role too, helping Peter reconcile with employees and stakeholders. Even some relatives who had taken Dad's side began admitting they had been deceived for years. One evening, Peter and I stayed late, going through old ledgers and contracts. He looked at me, tired but resolute, and said, "I don't want revenge. I just want the company and our family to be honest for once." I realised then that Peter wasn't just my stepbrother. He was the one person strong enough to confront decades of lies and still hold on to integrity. By the end of the week, Dad had officially stepped down, quietly leaving the office with a box of personal items. Peter took the reins, and for the first time, I felt a sense of hope. Maybe the family could rebuild not on lies or favoritism, but on truth. And as surreal as it was, I couldn't help but feel proud. Not just of Peter, but of myself, for finally seeing everything clearly and being willing to face it. By the time the dust settled, the family business had a new rhythm. Peter had assumed control officially, and Dad had faded into the background, rarely contacting anyone except for legal or financial matters. The shift was strange but necessary. The lies and secrets had been too heavy to ignore. Mom had become an anchor in the chaos. She started attending company meetings with Peter, offering guidance and support, helping mend relationships with employees who had felt betrayed. She was cautious, but she was also fiercely protective of Peter, finally seeing him as her son, not just a stepchild. I stayed close too, learning to separate my emotions from the situation. It was hard. I had loved my father and believed in him, but I couldn't ignore the truth. I started working directly with Peter on rebuilding trust with clients and contractors. The late nights, the endless spreadsheets, the difficult conversations, it was exhausting, but productive. For the first time, the company felt like a family effort rather than a dictatorship masked by charm. One evening, Peter and I sat in the office, looking at the skyline from the top floor. The city lights stretched endlessly, like a promise of new beginnings. "You know," I said, breaking the silence, "I never thought I'd see you like this, strong, in control, honest." Peter smirked, but there was no bitterness in it. It took a lot to get here, years of cleaning up his mess, hiding my anger, pretending everything was okay, but maybe that's what made me ready. I nodded. I think I get it now. You weren't trying to take Dad down out of spite. You were trying to take the family back." "Exactly," he said. "And I couldn't do it alone. You and Mum, you were part of this too, whether you realised it or not." We laughed softly, and it wasn't forced. It was the first moment in years where the weight of lies felt like it was lifting. Eventually, the extended family started healing. Some relationships never fully recovered. Aunt Linda kept her distance. Dad mostly disappeared, but others strengthened. Peter's courage and honesty had exposed the rock, but also offered a path forward. People began to respect him not just as Dad's stepson, but as a capable leader and moral compass for the company. The best part? The company survived and even thrived. By rooting out corruption and rebuilding trust, Peter brought in new clients and retained old ones who respected the transparency. Mom even joked that she was running the HR department unofficially, and I took pride in helping streamline operations. As for Dad, he eventually called Peter to apologise. It was awkward and strained, but it was a start. Peter listened, accepted some responsibility for the past tension, but made it clear that the future was no longer his father's domain. Standing in the office one evening, looking over the city, I realised something profound. The lies that had haunted our family for decades had finally been confronted. Painful as it was, it brought clarity, honesty, and a chance to rebuild something stronger than before. And in that moment, I felt a quiet sense of peace. Because sometimes it takes a storm of truth to finally see the sun.